Hello, everyone. One second. This is Gunarchic Awakening, back again for another video. I'm on my weekend. I should be taking a break, but not. I just got done suggesting to Maryland, and then I read a post on the Gynarchy group I follow. It's called, if you don't know what it is, it's called Serious Gynarchy. It's on Reddit. Uh, well, some of you obviously know. Some of you may not, because some of you could be from the good old days of Twitter or X. So, one of the moderators, I think, definitely one of the more serious-minded individuals at that group, posted questions for the people in the subreddit. Now, I can't. I made a rule. I don't post anymore on other websites, but I can answer the questions by video to the best of my ability. These were questions posed by Matriarchy Times to Dr. Kirti Patel. Uh, and the individual who posted the questions on Reddit wanted the people who are in the subreddit to answer them. And so I thought, okay, I looked over the questions, thought, I definitely have some things to say about this. So I decided I'm going to do that. It's going to take me about 2 to 3 videos because I have some things to say about some of the framing of these questions. So, first question is, how do you define gynarchy, and why do you believe it's a vital concept for advancing feminist discourse today? All right. As for how do I define gynarchy? To me, it's simply a system in which women are running things. It could be a community, a state government, a federal government. That's all it is, in my mind. Everything else follows after that. And do you believe it's a vital concept for advancing feminist discourse today? This is really weird, a very strange question to me because I'm not egalitarian. I don't believe that the sexes are equal. Um, I believe women are better in many ways that are suited for the continued survival of our civilization. So when you're asking if it's a vital concept for advancing feminist discourse, I have a little bit of a problem with the framing of this question because, in my mind, gynarchy and feminism are opposed. Or, well, they're not opposed concepts, but gynarchy is based on, in my view, different principles, different ideas than feminism. Feminism is about the political, economic, and social equality between the sexes. But here's the problem. If men are going to continue to use their part of the cake to fuck with everybody else, then do we want to keep going in that direction? Women are the majority of gun owners in this country. Do you see them spraying bodies off up and down the streets more often than not? No, it's the men who keep doing this. Men regularly terrorize our communities. They are initiating the vast majority of these wars lately, and they are the most brutal dictators. So, why, when you're talking about advancing feminist discourse, I'd like to first ask, because I'm not somebody who had deep roots in that community. What do you mean by discourse? Do you mean conversations that are taking place between feminists who have different ideas? Or are you trying to imply that gynarchy is a some kind of feminist movement or some kind of subset of the feminist discourse? Because I don't see it that way. I see sometimes feminism and radical feminism as a gateway to gynarchy. I see that people go into those ideas and philosophies, and then they realize, or they come to the conclusion that feminism, and I've seen it. I saw a video. I don't know what happened to the upload, but I remember I saw a woman getting on saying radical feminism's done great things for my life, but it's not good enough. She said we needed gynarchy now. So obviously, to me, if you're going to, I really don't want to make an implication here, but I almost feel as if I have to. Is the implication, or is there some kind of relativism that pertains to this discussion? Because what's the point of using different language if you're the same thing? Like, if gynarchy is just a subset of feminism, why are we using the word gynarchy? If gynarchists are just feminists or radical feminists, why call ourselves gynarchists? I just don't like the idea of trying to attach something to a concept that is defined differently. You know, if you believe this, fine, believe it. But I don't think that gynarchy, forget being vital, I don't think gynarchy is a concept for advancing feminist discourse at all. I think gynarchy is simply a different, uh, it's a different perspective. It's a, like, well, not gynarchy, but gynarchist views offer a different perspective on these issues. They offer different solutions. I don't consider myself a means towards this end. I don't know if other people feel the same way about that either. And I do have personal feelings about being lumped in with individuals who I do not identify with, at least in the sense of belonging to the same group. We don't. I certainly don't. I don't know. Sorry, I should have said we, but I don't. And this kind of gives the game away. This question right here is, what distinguishes gynarchy from, my writing is horrible. I think that's other feminist movements. Yeah. What distinguishes gynarchy from feminist movements, and how do you see it shaping the future inside? I need to write better. I have a problem with my I think I abbreviated a word and I don't even remember what the word is. Oh, traditional. My T doesn't even look like a T. Oh goodness. It looks more like a weird P. So what distinguishes gynarchy from traditional feminist movements, and how do you see it shaping the future of society? Okay, I'm gonna say it because I have to. Gynarchy is not a feminist movement. Okay? Gynarchy is literally a concept. I think what you meant to ask was, what distinguishes the gynarchy movement from traditional feminist movements? Like, what separates us? I think that that would have been a better question, because you're asking what distinguishes a definition from a movement. These are two different things. It's like saying, what distinguishes my microphone from the feminist movement? It's a denotative definition. The definition obviously separates itself from the movement, because a movement and a denotative definition are not the same thing. But if you're asking what the difference between the gynarchy movement is and traditional feminist movements, I don't know how to answer that question, because I think that's left up to the individual. For me, I became disillusioned with people within the feminist community, some people in the feminist community, because they violated or betrayed their ideals. Uh, and I also felt in time that it just wasn't going to be good enough. That this philosophy and ideology, I felt like it was a dead end, because men were not educating themselves, they were not learning, and they were only growing worse. That's part of why I became who I was today. So, what distinguishes the gynarchy movement from the feminist movement? Well, I can't speak for other gynarchists, okay? I'm talking to Matriarchy Times now. I can't speak for other gynarchists. I can only speak for me. I would say one thing that definitely distinguishes the gynarchy movement for me from the feminist movement is that I no longer have hope that feminism can achieve the end goal of providing safety and well-being for women and girls, that it can get them a better life. I don't think that the feminist ideology, and I especially don't think the feminist movements, are equipped to do that in the same way that we can. And that's because I don't feel that the situation itself can ever be rectified in a way that is equal. I think that there are certain problems that need to be resolved using a different method. Here's what I believe. Here's part of what I believe in a nutshell. I believe that all societies are driven by the self-interest of their people. The reason why I believe feminism and obviously male-led societies can't solve the problems and provide women with the health and stability and peace that they need is because it is the self-interest of the men within these so-called egalitarian societies and these male-led societies that prevent them from having the power that they need to address their own issues. The problem with living in the problem with feminists, and it's not feminists, but the problem with feminism itself is people often believe that there needs to be an equal distribution of concern for men and women. That somehow we need to treat both of their problems as if they were problems that in which they're both equally impacted. They're not equally impacted. Domestic violence disproportionately affects women worse than it does men. When you talk about killings, who's more likely to get killed? Men or women in these relationships? Who's more likely? Like some people will try to suggest that, oh yeah, well, women can be abusers or whatever. Words. I lived in a home with two men who regularly verbally cussed each other out. There were at least two physical altercations. One of them involved the person bleeding from the knee because the other had assaulted him with a can. This happened. So when you talk about your movement and you want to talk about stuff like this, they're not the same. It's disproportionate. And so the problem with feminism is that people will try to forward the notion that we need to treat both men and women's problems with an equal amount of attention, with an equal amount of seriousness. Again, they forward these ideas, and people genuinely believe that, even though it is obvious that when it comes to women's issues, they are the ones who are going to be suffering more from violence. They're going to be the primary victims of sex trafficking over men. They're going to be the ones who are going to be getting raped in society over men. I'm not talking about prison. Prison's a different story, but when you're out of prison, women have to literally change how they think, feel, operate when they walk outside their door. As soon as they leave their door, it's a whole nother story. If they're living by themselves, by the way. But then you have to talk about in the home. My mother wasn't even safe in her own home. Now, there are some societies where it's a little different, where you have different living situations. A man's not allowed to live with a woman, whatever. He has to live in like separate housing. In our society, we put people into the same home. We have an economic, a business situation that puts people in the same home. And what do we know happens when men have privacy with women? What do we know them for? What do we know that they're going to do? So that's something that I don't like. I don't like the idea that I have to treat men's and women's issues with an equal amount of attention or seriousness, because I don't see their issues as being comparable. They're not the same. Women are suffering way, way fucking more, and women are having a lot more problems in these areas. And if your society is driven by self-interest, then I think the only way to actually solve this problem is to give power over to the people who want the problem solved. In other words, in order for women to bring an end to a lot of these systemic issues and problems, they have to be in charge of the system itself. Because if they're not in charge of the system, then they don't have the power they need to actually address these issues and bring an end to them, because these are their problems. What I'm really suggesting is that a lot of men don't give a fuck about women's issues. And you could argue that some people who are suffering from androcentric conditioning, whether they're men, women, or whoever, don't give a fuck either. So when you when you see the world this way as a gynecologist, when you look at it and you see, okay, people are driven by self-interest, they're not driven by moral values necessarily or principles. They're driven by what's good for them. If that is true, if that concept holds true, and I believe it does, then only a gynocentric society whose self interest is rooted in gynocentrism can actually resolve these issues. Because you need not only control of the system, you need to have power over the system so that you can officially address these issues and you can do whatever you need to do. You can actually because you have to be able to make changes to the system. But how do you make changes to the system if A, you're not in charge of it, or B, you have to constantly share it with people who do this tug of war bullshit with you every 4 or 8 years and like, no, well, let's focus on these issues now and let's just ignore these. But how does that give us a consistent response to these problems, right? If we're doing musical chairs. I don't like that. I don't like that. And that is one of the consequences of having a feminist movement, which is you, whether you like it or not, have to include men in your feminism. But part of gynarchy is I don't even have to pretend to be fair about this, because to me, the situation between the two isn't fair. It's disproportionately unfair, and it's mostly unfair in the women's regard, whether it's due to factors like biology, socialization, power dynamics, the way the system benefits certain people over others. So I don't. If you're gonna ask what distinguishes it for me, the difference is, it's like I'm trying to. I like my the Gynarchy movement, the movement that I'm part of. I feel like when we're talking about addressing problems, I think that going for the jugular and dealing with it directly is better than trying to share power with people who have their own interests, have their own particular agendas that don't line up with yours. And obviously, these people don't give a shit about you. If they did, they would have done something by now. How many, like when Canada was doing that whole like dancing, like there was like a bunch of lawmakers dancing because they passed one bill or something. There were some women coming out saying, "Yeah, do you think that's anywhere near good enough?" What I'm saying is that I think women who are in charge of a system would have a better ability to deal with their own problems, as opposed to hoping that one day magically men are going to just start caring about their issues. I'm not only a critic of men, obviously, but I am very cynical about their ability to care about women beyond what those women can offer them. I see many men as transactional beings, as beings that are like, well, look, I'll do this for you, but you need to fuck me. That's how I see the average guy, whether he admits it or not. And how do you see it shaping the future and society? The Gynarchy movement is not going to be shaping necessarily the course of civilization in the short term, but what it will do is it offers an alternative. This is the alternative to feminism. This is the alternative for everybody who thought that all that other stuff wasn't good enough or it didn't really help. This is what we're here for. We're here to tell people it's okay. It's okay. You are perfectly fine thinking this way and feeling this way, and that there is nothing wrong with it. That's part of why we're here. We're here to let you know that you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not crazy. In fact, you're damn right. So, how will we shape the future? I don't know if we will shape it immediately, but I know that in the long run, we will shape it tremendously. And I do believe it'll be for the positive. And the reason is because ultimately, when these other systems fail and these ideologies fail, and people get fed up and tired with the lack of progress, with people trying to normalize all the violent behavior and all the sexual abuse and all that other shit, when enough people see that their ideologies aren't doing anything, eventually they're going to settle on something that will work. And I do believe that the Gynarchy community, if it gets in big enough numbers, we can get results. And that's what they'll care about. Can you get results? Can you get shit done? When women feel like when women wake up to the fact that feminism itself, the ideology, is used to try to either put women to the side or to try to decenter women cleverly by trying to do this whole 50-50 bullshit thing, that's when I think they'll wake up to it. But not before then. I'll see you in part 2.